my name is Christy. Welcome back to my channel. I have another YouTuber versus YouTuber challenge video for you today. My friend Nicky from JaNick Fashions and I are going head to head with another sewing project. We have randomly selected items for each other, and whatever comes up, you gotta make it work. So here is a small clip of what Nicky has selected for me. It's not awesome.
Hi, I'm Nicky from JaNick Fashions, and I'm so excited to be back on Christy's channel to help her to select her second garment that she will be doing in our collaboration. So what we'll be doing here today is we will be spinning a wheel in order to select what fabric she'll be using, what type of clothing she'll make, where she'll be wearing it to, and one special extra feature. So let's begin. So you may recall that last time Christy made this skirt with a wonderful wavy print fabric. So we're going to get rid of that. It's going to go from the wheel. And now she's going to be able to make something from one of the fabrics that's left. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel.
Oh, Nicky, you got rid of the wrong fabric because I totally used the floral one last time. Well, that was a fabric I didn't like.
So this is brown fabric. You know how I feel about brown fabric. I'm not a fan of making anything for myself with brown fabric, and I actually think Christy feels the same. But here we are, and that's what you're going to use. All right, so last time Christy made a skirt, so we're going to go ahead and take that off of our wheel. And now we are going to spin the wheel to see what is next.
Okay, a brown shirt. Sounds beautiful.
All right, Christy, you are going to be making a brown shirt. I am glad that's not me, but I think you'll do a fantastic job with it. All right, let's go ahead and pick the next thing. Let's see where Christy is going to be wearing her brown shirt. So we already did formal for Christy last time, so I'm going to go ahead and take that off the wheel. All right, so now let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what we get.
A brown special occasion shirt. Well, that's what every girl dreams of.
All right, you're going to wear your brown shirt at a special occasion. Last thing that we're going to choose for Christy is one special thing that's added to the shirt. So something special like flowers, but we already did flowers for Christy last time. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to spin the wheel and see what we land on.
Lining. All right, that's easier and harder at the same time.
Okay, Christy, your shirt has to have lining. All right, so you're going to be making a brown shirt with a lining for a special occasion. I know you can do it. I'm excited to see what you make. All right, enjoy.
Okay, thanks so much, Nicky. Sounds great. Super excited about those things you selected for me. Thank you, Nicky. This will be fun, I hope. So stay tuned to see whatever I happen to come up with from the challenge items Nicky just selected for me. I'm as interested as you are. Be sure to tune into Nicky's channel as well to see what she did with the challenge items I selected for her. They weren't as bad. Brown fabric. It's the brown fabric, Christy. Brown fabric, not another fabric. Be sure to tune into last week to see why I'm repeating brown fabric over and over again, because on last challenge, I completely forgot what fabric she selected for me, and I made a garment out of the wrong fabric. So, whoops. All right, don't forget to subscribe to both of our channels. If you are ready, I'm ready. I'm so excited. Thanks so much for being here. Brown fabric, brown fabric. I got the brown fabric, not another fabric. I'm going into like Rain Man mode here. All right, here's my brown fabric. Just kidding. Okay, yeah, that was the floral print I was supposed to have used last time. Here's the brown fabric. It's beautiful. Okay, it's not so bad. It is this bullet fabric that is a weird kind of waffly texture, but it has stretch in both directions. So It's going to make the most beautiful brown special occasion shirt ever. So I'm patterning from a tank top that I already have, and I decided to make it a one shoulder because that screams special occasion. I've folded the fabric in half and I've marked with bobby pins because that's what I had near me, where I want the one shoulder design to begin. Next, start chalking around the edges of the tank top. You only need to chalk to where the imaginary bobby pin line starts. Then use a French curve ruler or just eyeball a curve to create the fancy one shoulder special occasion pattern. I'm also using the ruler to create a slight curve along the bottom, but you can't see it here because my camera angle was awful. So a trick I have learned to prevent a gaping armhole is to subtract an inch from the edge and then gradually taper it into the side seam, which I believe only works with stretchy fabrics, which this is. And because it's a stretchy fabric, I'm leaving a very narrow seam allowance along the sides and a 1/2 inch seam allowance everywhere else. Same thing for the back of the shirt. I folded over the fabric and lined up the front on top to chalk around the edges. Since the back of the tank top needs to dip a little bit lower, I'm using my French curve ruler again to create that curve. And since we're using the front of the shirt that already has the seam allowance built in, there's no need to add anything extra, just cut it out. So you should have 2 back pieces and 2 front pieces, which I know doesn't look like they line up at all, but it will. Since this challenge shirt requires lining, we basically need to duplicate all efforts. So line up with right sides together, 1 front piece and 1 back piece at the shoulder seam. And I'm gonna pause here because this is a fabric I got in a mystery fabric box, which I don't know why, but there always seems to be random markings on it. See, what is this? Luckily it'll be on the inside. Anyways, then line up the other front piece and back piece at the shoulder. I have sewn the 2 shoulder seams and have ironed those seams open and flat. Flip and line up the 2 pieces with right sides together. Pin the 2 pieces together and sew the entire length of the neckline over the shoulder and through to the front. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Another tip when trying to sew curves is to let the fabric curve under the needle naturally and don't try to pull it straight. Use a sharp pair of scissors to clip notches along the curves up to the thread line. Be sure to not clip through it. When you turn it right side out, it's still a little puffy, so we'll need to understitch the seam to the lining before ironing it flat. So this is the lining side and this is the front piece. To understitch, fold the seam allowance towards the lining side and then sew very close to that thread line. Then after ironing, it lies a lot flatter. It's burrito time. Okay, first time I'm doing this. So with the shirt right side out, roll up each of the sides. Then take the top piece and flip it so that the lining comes out the other side. Basically what we're doing is facing the 2 edges right sides together, but sandwiching, or burritoing, the rest of the shirt rolled up inside. It's super important to not pin or sew any part of the rolled up shirt piece, just the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Use your fingers and feel to make sure none of the shirt is being accidentally pinned to the seam. Then carefully repeat this process on the other side of the shirt. Once it is pinned and you have double checked to make sure that no shirt pieces are caught, sew continuously from one side to the other. Oh, and if you think of it, which is something I never seem to be able to do, try to pin with your pin heads going in the opposite direction to make it easier to pull them out. Be extra careful when sewing the shoulder seam, and to learn from my hardship, which you'll see later, it's best to have a little wider of a shoulder than the tiny one I've chosen. Again, make sure you trim and clip the curves. So here comes the hard part. What you need to do is turn the shirt right side out by pulling the other side of the shirt through that tiny little shoulder piece and pray that nothing was accidentally caught. This is why it's best to make the shoulder wider, because I wasn't sure I was going to make this work. After quite the struggle, it finally pulled through. So if you're trying this at home, do yourself a favor and leave a wider shoulder. Look, I am legit sweating. To avoid the same puffy problem, we need to do some more understitching, but it's a little more difficult this time because you can't get all the way through. So this is the lining, and that's the front. Again, fold the seam to the lining side and then stitch super close to the edge. Stitch as far as you can, and then you'll have to stop and restart along the other side. You can see here that the understitching does not go all the way through, but it's better than nothing. So once you iron it flat, most of the puffiness is gone. With the shirt facing right side out, take the 2 lining layers and the 2 outer layers and position the shirt so that they are facing each other. I know, this seems complicated, but really all you're doing is creating a nice hidden seam for the lining layer and the top layer at the same time by facing them right sides together. And make sure you are lining up the seams as you pin. In one continuous line, sew from the lining to the front on each side. I'm being lazy and using my serger, which is an easy way to keep the stretch. A zigzag stitch on your sewing machine gets the same results. This time, when turning it right side out, it's a lot easier than the last time, and it's starting to look like a one-shoulder top, but a boring one. So I've decided to make it a little more interesting by designing a braided fabric piece to go around the edge. To do so, I measure up the side, around the front, over the shoulder, across the back, and ending at the armpit. This measurement came to 51 inches, but I'm rounding up to at least 53 to account for the braiding. My goal is to cut 3 strips 53 inches long by 2.5 inches wide, but the fabric wasn't long enough. So I first have to join them together to make them 53 inches long. After you've ironed open the seams, fold them in half with right sides facing together and sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance down the entire length of all 3 53-inch strips. To make them as flat as possible, trim down the excess seam allowance, attach a safety pin to one end and send it on its way through the middle to turn the strips right side out. Once you have all 3 strips, make sure you iron them to make it a little flatter and easier to braid. Nothing fancy here, just standard braiding, where you cross the outside strip to the middle and then cross the opposing outside strip to the middle and keep going the entire length of this super long braid. By now, you've all seen my dog, my co-star Roscoe, but here is a rare sighting of my other dog, Roxy. Roxy. Nope, that's more in the way. You're more in the way. Okay. With my sweet girl Roxy off my project, I am now lightly stretching and clipping the braid to the side seam all the way across the front and over the shoulder, to finish by tucking the end underneath the braid at the armpit. I wasn't sure my sewing machine would neatly sew over this chunky braid, so I decided to secure both sides of the braid with some good old-fashioned hand sewing. Poke the needle in the top layer and grab only a very small piece of the fabric, then tunnel it through the braid. Start again directly across from where the needle comes out of the braid and pick up another small piece and continue this process, making sure to only go through the top layer and no stitches are showing from the back. And once you've completed one side, repeat the whole process on the other side to fully secure the braid. The only step left is to finish the hem. To reduce bulk, I am serging the bottom, then folding it up once about 1/4 of an inch to sew on my sewing machine. I had to stop and restart around the braid. I hope you've enjoyed this YouTuber versus YouTuber challenge. Thank you, Nicky. Please don't forget to subscribe to both of our channels and enjoy the final reveal. In all honesty, I didn't think I was gonna like this at all, but I actually really do. This is, I don't know, it's just fun and really comfortable, and the fabric kind of cinches you in a bit. All right, time to go dancing. It's like 2:30. Just have to go dance in my bedroom.